There is a silent alchemy at work in the soul of every man and woman who has walked through the shadowed valleys of suffering. This mysterious process cannot be bought, taught, or borrowed. It must be lived. And when lived, it reveals something that cannot be discovered through pleasure, comfort, or idle ease. Suffering, when embraced not as punishment but as instruction, has the power to uncover the divine assignment etched into one's being. Consider the life of Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist imprisoned in Auschwitz, where every semblance of humanity was stripped from him. He watched friends perish, endured hunger and torture, and stood face to face with evil incarnate, and yet he emerged not broken, but illuminated. In his suffering, he discovered his life's work to teach that man's ultimate freedom lies in his ability to choose his attitude, even in the midst of unimaginable pain. His suffering uncovered his purpose, not in spite of, but because of the agony. In ancient times, the Stoics understood this sacred process. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, faced war, plague, and betrayal. Yet he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He did not flee suffering. He embraced it, transforming every obstacle into a stepping stone toward inner sovereignty. He recognized that life does not present suffering as a curse, but as a compass pointing to deeper truth. There is a force within you, slumbering perhaps, that only pain can awaken. And when you cease to resist the fire, you find that it does not destroy you, it purifies you. You become like gold, refined by flame. Your talents, your passions, your unique mission are often buried beneath layers of comfort and routine. Suffering shatters those layers. It arrests you, forces you inward, and demands you ask the ancient question, why am I here? The poet Khalil Gibran wrote, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding, and from that shell once cracked open pours the revelation of who you are." This is not mere metaphor. Consider Oprah Winfrey, born into poverty, abused, dismissed, yet her trials became the soil in which her purpose grew. She used her suffering as a platform to reach millions, turning her wounds into wisdom. Now you too must make this choice, for suffering in itself does not lead to purpose. It is your response to it that matters. Will you curse the fire, or will you let it mold you? Will you retreat into bitterness or rise into meaning? This is the power granted to every soul, the power to transmute suffering into significance. There are practical steps, my friend, by which this transformation can be made. First, write your pain. Give it language, for when you name your suffering, you begin to master it. Next, reflect on what the pain has taught you, what strengths it forced you to develop, what illusions it shattered. In every wound lies a message, and when you uncover that message, you find direction. Then, seek how your pain can serve others. The great paradox is this: your deepest wound often contains your highest service. The mother who lost a child may become a guide for grieving parents. The soldier haunted by war may help others navigate trauma. The man who failed in business may become a mentor, helping others rise where he once fell. This is how suffering becomes sacred. It is redeemed when it fuels the upliftment of others. Leo Tolstoy, after years of spiritual torment, wrote, "The Kingdom of God is within you," a book that inspired Gandhi and generations since. His personal suffering forced him into a spiritual quest that birthed a legacy far greater than his novels. He discovered that pain, when faced honestly, becomes a bridge to the eternal. You too must walk this bridge. You must ask yourself in the quiet hours, not why do I suffer, but what is this pain asking of me? Listen, and you will find that the answers do not come from the intellect. They rise from the soul. There is no greatness without a season of crushing. No masterpiece is born without chaos. Beethoven composed his most glorious symphonies while deaf. Nelson Mandela found his moral clarity in a prison cell. Helen Keller, blind and deaf, became a beacon of courage. Their suffering did not obscure their purpose, it revealed it. So rise, even now, if your life feels like ashes. Know that within you burns the same sacred fire that carried saints and sages, warriors and poets through the darkest nights. Your destiny is not found in ease, but in endurance. Your purpose is not revealed in pleasure, but in perseverance. And when you have walked through your valley, head unbowed, heart unbroken, you will look back and say, all of this was not to destroy me, it was to awaken me. For suffering is not the enemy, it is the teacher. And once you learn its lessons, you will not only discover your purpose, you will live it with a passion the world cannot extinguish. Failure is not the end. It is the beginning of wisdom, the gatekeeper to destiny, and the silent architect of greatness. The man who has never failed has never truly lived, for failure is life's grand revealer, the force that strips away illusion, exposing not our weakness, but our untried strength. Every soul that has ever touched greatness has first knelt before the harsh discipline of defeat. It is not punishment, but preparation. When Thomas Edison was asked how it felt to fail 10,000 times before inventing the electric light, he replied that he had not failed at all. He had merely discovered 10,000 ways that would not work. That is the language of destiny. That is the mind refined by failure and not crushed by it. Edison understood what the world often forgets, that failure is not a signal to stop, but an invitation to grow. There are men and women in history who wore failure like a second skin, who were laughed at, scorned, bankrupted, betrayed, and forgotten, yet rose from the ashes with a vision more focused, a will more unyielding. Abraham Lincoln lost multiple elections, failed in business, and suffered immense personal tragedy, yet he became the president who held a fractured nation together. His destiny was forged in the fires of defeat. You too must learn this sacred equation. Failure is feedback. It is life's mirror, showing you where you are not yet ready, where your aim was noble, but your execution unskilled, where your heart was willing, but your strategy flawed. It humbles the proud and uplifts the persistent. But more than this, failure teaches you the indispensable art of self-awareness. There is a principle that the Greeks understood well, gonote soton, know thyself. Failure introduces you to yourself. It shows you what you value when all else is stripped away. It reveals whether your dreams are true desires or borrowed ambitions. When your plans fall apart, you are left with the question, why am I really doing this? And the answer, born of pain, is the compass that guides you to your destiny. J.K. Rowling was a single mother living on welfare when she penned Harry Potter. Her manuscript was rejected by 12 publishers. 12 doors closed before one opened. But she kept writing, not because of hope alone, but because writing was her purpose, her very breath. Failure, instead of silencing her, clarified her calling. The world does not remember her rejections. It remembers her resilience. You see, destiny is not for the faint of heart. It does not yield itself to the one who fears falling. It is reserved for the one who, having fallen, refuses to stay down. Destiny honors the one who sees failure not as a verdict, but as a lesson. You must not despise your failures. Rather, examine them, chronicle them. What did they teach you? What lie did they expose? What flaw did they uncover? Do not rush to escape the sting. Let it teach you. Let it refine your method, purify your motive, and strengthen your resolve. Every failure is a test of alignment. If your pursuit is shallow, you will abandon it. But if your purpose is authentic, failure will deepen your commitment. This is the paradox. True purpose grows stronger in the soil of defeat. Like the seed that dies to sprout anew, so too must the self die to illusion before it can rise to truth. The Bible says, though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again. This is not a promise of avoidance, but a call to endurance. Failure does not separate you from your destiny. It reveals the path to it. Even the great Leonardo da Vinci began many works he never finished. Many of his inventions failed in design or execution, yet from this iterative process emerged ideas centuries ahead of his time. He was not daunted by what did not work. He was driven to discover what could. The athlete who loses the race studies the film, sharpens the form, strengthens the weakness. The entrepreneur whose company collapses revises the model, rebuilds the network, redefines the mission. The heartbroken lover learns to love more wisely, to choose more truly. Failure is the forge. And in that forge, character is formed. Not the kind of character that boasts or postures, but the kind that endures, that bends without breaking, that serves without seeking applause. You must let your failures deepen your integrity. Let them expand your humility. Let them awaken your empathy for others still caught in their own battles. Practical strategy begins with reframing failure. Call it what it is, a teacher. Build a failure journal. After each setback, document what occurred, what went wrong, what you learned, and what you will do differently. This turns shame into structure, confusion into clarity. Seek mentors not just of success, but of resilience. Read biographies not only of glory, but of grit. Study Churchill, who said, "Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm." Study Maya Angelou, whose early trauma and rejection became the wellspring of her poetic genius. Read Dostoevsky, whose imprisonment and exile gave birth to philosophical masterpieces. If you fear failure, you will shrink from your calling. But if you learn to embrace it, you will run toward your purpose with courage unshakable. The man who fails with vision is further along than the man who succeeds without it. Understand this, your failure is not final, it is formative. Your path is not ruined, it is redirected. The dreams that shatter were too small for you. The doors that closed led to rooms unfit for your becoming. Let the falling sharpen your seeing. Stand again, walk again, build again, and this time build not just with ambition, but with understanding born of fire. The next time you fall, and you will, rise again, not bitter, but better. For in the ashes of every failure lies the blueprint of your destiny. In every age, in every land, there have walked men and women whose names echo through time, not because they avoided suffering, but because they transmuted it. They stared adversity in the face, and rather than retreat, they advanced. They took what would break the common man and used it to build legacies. These are not the fortunate. These are the faithful, the bold, the resolute. Their greatness was not gifted. It was forged in the crucible of hardship. Let us consider one of the towering figures of the 20th century, Winston Churchill. A man not born into obscurity, but into expectation, and yet, in his early years, he failed numerous times. He lost elections, he made military blunders, he was labeled arrogant, brash, and outdated. Yet, in the darkest hour of Britain's history, when bombs fell and morale collapsed, it was this very man who rose to speak words that steadied a nation. We shall not surrender. The adversity he had endured prepared him. The ridicule he had faced hardened his resolve. The failures he suffered made his leadership unshakable. Greatness, you see, is not an accident. It is cultivated in shadow before it shines in the light. We look now to Harriet Tubman, born into slavery, beaten, degraded, hunted. She should have been crushed by the weight of her condition, but she escaped not just for herself, but for others. She returned time and again to lead hundreds to freedom. What gave her such courage? It was adversity. It was a life of injustice that ignited in her the flame of liberation. Her trials did not just shape her, they sanctified her purpose. When we study adversity, we must study not only the external struggle, but the inner transformation. Mahatma Gandhi, trained as a barrister in London, was thrown off a train in South Africa for the color of his skin. That moment of humiliation became the seed of his resistance. He turned the insult into a philosophy of nonviolent protest that would free a subcontinent. Without adversity, there is no Gandhi. Without injustice, there is no Satyagraha. He did not merely endure, he transfigured pain into political power. You must ask yourself, what fire have you passed through? What wound have you carried? For within that wound lies a secret. the potential for greatness, not through escape, but through endurance, not by denial, but by transformation. Even in the world of invention, hardship is the catalyst. Nikola Tesla, penniless and often overlooked, suffered ridicule and sabotage, yet he persisted because his vision burned brighter than his despair. Though he died alone, his ideas electrified the modern world, literally. The adversity he bore kept him pure. It stripped him of worldly distraction and left him married only to his mission. There are those who will say, but I am not made for greatness. My life is ordinary, my pain is mundane. To them I say, greatness is not a birthright, it is a decision. Look to Helen Keller, deaf and blind, yet through the guidance of Anne Sullivan, she found language, and through language purpose. She wrote books, gave speeches, and advocated for the disabled. Adversity tried to silence her, but she found a way to speak louder than most ever could. The philosopher Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The great figures of history found their why through adversity. They did not wait for easy times to do great things. They recognized that hard times are the proving ground for true greatness. In the story of Frederick Douglass, we see this clearly. Born into slavery, he taught himself to read. Knowledge became his rebellion. His voice, born of chains, broke those chains for others. He became a statesman, a writer, a symbol of hope. His greatness was not in spite of adversity, it was born from it. You too must mind your life for such moments. Look back not with shame, but with clarity. When were you most lost? What did you learn? Who did you become? Did you grow softer or stronger? Did you shrink or expand? Adversity does not come to destroy, it comes to define. It separates the pretender from the pioneer, the talker from the doer, the dreamer from the fulfiller. And there is no greater strategy than to embrace hardship, not as enemy, but as ally. Take your journal and write the names of those who have inspired you, then research the crucibles they endured. You will find a pattern. Adversity, then clarity. Suffering, then significance. Failure, then, even in literature, the theme repeats. In Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, it is through suffering that the soul becomes conscious. In Les Miserables, Jean Valjean's transformation begins in the bitter pit of injustice. These are not mere stories, they are maps. They show us the territory of human greatness, and that territory is always marked by pain, by failure, by fire. But the fire is not to be feared, it is to be welcomed. For only in the fire is the dross burned away. Only in the fire is the gold revealed. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years behind bars. What did he lose? Time, freedom, family. But what did he gain? Vision, patience, moral authority. When he emerged, he did not seek vengeance. He offered reconciliation. That is greatness. That is adversity repurposed as destiny. So when adversity comes, do not curse it. Ask it what it has come to teach. Ask it what within you it has come to awaken. There is something hidden in you that ease will never reveal. Only pressure, only conflict, only struggle can summon it forth. And when it does, when your purpose is born in pain, when your vision is baptized by trial, you will join the ranks of those who turned adversity into greatness, not as a rare exception, but as part of the sacred lineage of those who rose not because life was easy, but because they were unwilling to let hardship have the final word. There are moments in a man's life that break him so thoroughly he believes he can never rise again. Moments when the ground beneath his feet collapses, when death or betrayal or loss carves a wound so deep that it bleeds into the soul. These are not the ordinary defeats of life. These are personal tragedies, events that shatter the illusion of control, that expose us to the rawness of existence. And yet, in such moments, there lies the seed of transformation, the silent whisper of destiny calling us to become something greater than we were before. The tragedy that strikes is not always of our choosing, but the response is. And in that response, the soul discovers its true measure. When Viktor Frankl was imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, he was stripped of everything: his family, his freedom, his dignity. He witnessed suffering on a scale most cannot imagine, and yet, in that inferno, he discovered a truth so profound that it would become the foundation of his life's work, that man can endure any how if he has a why. From tragedy, he did not emerge bitter. He emerged awakened. He gave the world Man's Search for Meaning, a book born of pain, yet overflowing with purpose. What Frankl discovered, and what many miss, is that personal tragedy rips away the superficial and reveals the essential. It forces a confrontation with the self. No more masks, no more pretenses. You are left naked before your own soul. And in that sacred silence, when the noise of the world fades and only your heartbeat remains, you hear it. The question, who am I now? Not who I was before the loss, but who I will become after it. Consider the life of C.S. Lewis. A brilliant scholar and skeptic, he built a fortress of intellect around his heart. But it was only after he found love late in life and then lost his beloved wife Joy to cancer that he was truly transformed. His book, A Grief Observed, is not the work of a detached thinker. It is the soul's cry of a man undone. And yet, from that cry came a deeper wisdom, a richer faith, a broader compassion. The man who wrote Mere Christianity became a man who understood suffering, not in theory, but in flesh. Do you see the pattern? Tragedy is not a detour, it is the forge. It is the moment when all that is false burns away and only the truth remains. And that truth is often unbearable at first, but if you are willing to sit with it, if you are willing to let the sorrow do its sacred work, you will rise, not as a victim, but as a vessel. There is a story told of the Japanese art of kintsugi, the mending of broken pottery with gold. The cracks are not hidden, they are honored. The break becomes the most beautiful part of the vessel. This is not sentiment. This is philosophy. Your wounds, your losses, your grief, they can become the gold that fills your cracks, the strength that seals your fractures. In the annals of history, you will find this truth again and again. Nelson Mandela lost nearly 3 decades to imprisonment. Yet when he emerged, he had been transformed by tragedy into a man capable of uniting a divided nation. He did not allow bitterness to corrode his spirit. He allowed solitude and suffering to mature him, and in doing so, he fulfilled his purpose. In the realm of literature, look to Mary Shelley. Her life was surrounded by loss. Her mother died after childbirth, her husband drowned, and 3 of her children died in infancy. From this torrent of sorrow came Frankenstein, a novel not of horror alone, but of abandonment, longing, and the search for identity. Her personal tragedy gave birth to a story that would resonate through generations. And what of you? You who have known heartbreak, betrayal, the death of dreams, the loss of loved ones, do you think your pain is without meaning? Do you believe the universe is indifferent? Or could it be that your suffering, too, is a summons? You must not rush to heal, nor numb the ache with distraction. You must allow the grief to speak. You must ask it what it is teaching you, for there is knowledge that only sorrow can give. Joy teaches us to dance. Tragedy teaches us to see the impermanence of life, the fragility of plans, the depth of the human soul. Practical strategies for transformation begin not with doing, but with being, with the decision to be fully present to the pain. Start a daily practice of solitude. Write letters to the one you lost, even if they are no longer here. Speak the unspoken. Let the tears fall without apology. Then, slowly ask, what has this loss awakened in me? What am I now called to do, to give, to become? You must also learn from those who have walked this road before. Read The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion, a piercing exploration of grief. Study the letters of Seneca, who faced exile and death, yet wrote with clarity and serenity. Reflect on Job, who lost everything and still declared, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him." And you must act not to escape the pain, but to honor it. Channel your loss into service. Let your suffering become empathy. Let your wounds heal others. Many a counselor, healer, teacher, and leader was born in a moment of unbearable sorrow. Your purpose may lie hidden in the ruins. When the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way," he was not writing from comfort. He was writing in war, in loss, in the daily burden of ruling a chaotic empire. He understood that tragedy, properly faced, becomes fuel. You are not broken beyond repair. You are being remade. But the remaking is not painless. It requires surrender, it requires courage, and most of all, it requires faith that on the other side of despair is a deeper self waiting to emerge. So I say to you with full conviction, yes, personal tragedy can be a catalyst for transformation, not because it is good, but because it can be made good, not because it is just, but because justice can grow from it. Not because it was chosen, but because greatness chooses to rise from even the most unwanted suffering. Rise then. Rise not despite the tragedy, but because of it. It is one of life's most striking mysteries. Two people face the same storm, yet one emerges stronger, clearer, even radiant with new purpose, while the other is crushed beneath the weight, broken in spirit, paralyzed by fear. Why? What separates the one who grows from the one who collapses? Is it luck? Is it talent? No. It is something far more fundamental. It is belief. It is interpretation. It is the internal response to the external. You see, adversity is impartial. It does not discriminate. It visits the rich and the poor, the wise and the foolish, the young and the old. But what you do with it, that is where destiny is drawn. The man who grows is not the one who avoids suffering, but the one who confronts it, questions it, wrestles with it, and ultimately transforms it. The one who collapses is not weak in body, but in vision. He has not learned to see beyond the pain to the lesson hidden within it. Let us look to the example of Thomas Edison. As a child, he was labeled addled by a schoolmaster, dismissed as unteachable. His mother, however, refused that verdict. She taught him herself, and he began to tinker, to experiment, to dream. Later, he would fail thousands of times in pursuit of the electric light. But did he collapse? No, he said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." His resilience lay not in his circumstances, but in his philosophy. He chose to see each failure as feedback. That choice made all the difference. Now contrast this with the story of Robert Falcon Scott, the British explorer who died on his return from the South Pole. He faced unimaginable adversity, blizzards, starvation, frostbite. But what doomed him was not the hardship. It was the failure to adapt, the refusal to relinquish pride for pragmatism. He clung to convention, resisted innovation, and could not reframe his suffering as opportunity. His journal entries, while noble, speak of resignation, not resolve. The tragedy is not that he died, but that he did not evolve. Growth from adversity depends first on mindset. Carol Dweck's research on the growth mindset confirms what philosophers and sages have long known, that the belief that you can learn from difficulty dramatically improves your ability to endure and transcend it. This is why Epictetus, born into slavery, became one of the world's greatest Stoic philosophers. He believed not in the avoidance of suffering, but in mastering your response to it. It's not what happens to you, he wrote, but how you react to it that matters. Some collapse because they view adversity as punishment. Others grow because they view it as preparation. Let us consider Malala Yousafzai, a young girl shot in the head by the Taliban for speaking up for girls' education. She could have withdrawn into silence, become a victim of terror, but she chose a different path. She interpreted the attempt to kill her not as a reason to give up, but as proof that her voice was powerful. That interpretation turned a near-death experience into a global movement. From pain, she built purpose. And there lies the difference. Interpretation. The man who grows sees adversity not as the end, but as the beginning. He does not ask, why me? He asks, what now? He does not say, this should not have happened. He says, now that it has, who will I become? You must cultivate this inner lens. When the storm comes, and it will, do not merely survive it. Stand in it. Speak to it. Ask it what it demands of you. Perhaps it calls for humility or patience or reinvention. Answer that call, and you will not collapse. You will be reborn. Consider Helen Keller once more. Deaf and blind from a young age, she could have vanished into obscurity, but under the guidance of Anne Sullivan, she began to connect with language, and through language, with humanity. Her world expanded not because her senses were restored, but because her spirit was. Her internal world became richer than most sighted, hearing people will ever know. Her adversity became the foundation of her influence. The collapse, then, often begins in the mind. The man who tells himself this is too much finds that it is. The one who says this is my trial and I shall meet it finds the strength to do just that. Belief governs action, and action determines destiny. It is no accident that the great spiritual texts all speak of suffering as sacred. In the Bible, Job loses everything, yet says, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. In the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna faces despair on the battlefield, but is taught that duty must prevail over doubt. In the Prophet, Khalil Gibran writes, your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. These are not romantics, they are maps. They tell us that pain is not a prison, but a portal. But the choice remains yours. Will you use adversity to justify your weakness or to discover your strength? Will you tell yourself the story of defeat or the story of transformation? Practical strategies exist for cultivating this resilience. Begin by journaling not just your pain, but what it teaches. Develop a daily discipline, physical, mental, spiritual. Read the lives of those who endured and transcended. Meditate on your suffering not as misfortune, but as initiation. Create routines that build strength in the small things so you are ready for the big ones. Surround yourself with those who lift, not those who wallow. Seek mentors, both living and dead, those whose words and deeds show the way forward. And above all, serve. Nothing transforms suffering faster than turning it into service. The man who helps others heal becomes healed himself. The woman who channels her pain into purpose finds meaning even in her wounds. Remember this, you were not made to collapse, you were made to rise again and again and again, to become the kind of soul that shines brighter for every storm it endures. You carry within you the capacity for infinite growth, but it must be awakened, tested, refined. So why do some grow while others collapse? Because some choose to, some believe they can, and because belief, when married to purpose, makes even the hardest trial a stepping stone to greatness. Choose growth, choose the fire, and become the diamond the world is waiting to see. The world is filled with men who wish to live without suffering, and yet they wander aimlessly, chasing pleasure, chasing applause, chasing possessions, only to find themselves hollow in moments of silence. You see, meaning is not born in comfort. Meaning is born in fire. It is born in the furnace of affliction, in the ache of unanswered questions, in the long dark nights when the soul cries out and the heavens seem still. And so I tell you, suffering is not the enemy. Suffering is the midwife of meaning. A man does not begin the search for purpose until the illusion of ease has been shattered. So long as things go his way, he drifts. But when life brings him to his knees, when he is stripped of what he thought he could not live without, then and only then does he begin to ask the deeper questions. Why am I here? What does it all mean? Who must I become? Suffering is not merely a test, it is a call. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." And indeed, when a man finds meaning in his suffering, he transforms. The pain does not vanish, but it is transfigured. It becomes a source of strength, a sacred fire that purifies and empowers. Take the example of Harriet Tubman, born into slavery, beaten, hunted, deprived of even the most basic human dignity. Her suffering could have crushed her, but instead it gave birth to a mission. She escaped bondage, but she did not stop there. She returned again and again, risking her life to liberate others. Her suffering became her compass. Her purpose was forged in those very chains, and in fulfilling it, she transcended them. Look, too, at the story of the Apostle Paul. Once a persecutor of Christians, he was struck blind on the road to Damascus. In that suffering, in that blindness, he received a vision, not of comfort, but of a cross. And from that point on, his life was suffering, imprisonment, shipwrecks, beatings. Yet he wrote from his prison cell, "I have learned in whatever state I am to be content." Why? Because his suffering was saturated with purpose. He had found his mission, and it gave meaning to every trial. Now, some will ask, but what of innocent suffering? What of the child with cancer? What of the mother who loses her son? These are not easy questions, and yet even here, meaning can emerge, not always quickly, not always clearly, but profoundly. I think of Viktor Frankl again, who watched his wife, his parents, and his friends perish in the Holocaust. He did not deny the horror, but he refused to let it be meaningless. He wrote, "In some way, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning." He did not glorify pain, he transcended it. And in so doing, he showed that even in the deepest despair, man can choose how to respond. Suffering strips away the non-essential. It brings you face to face with who you really are, and more importantly, who you might become. When Dante, in his Divine Comedy, found himself in a dark wood, for the straight way was lost, he was not merely lost in the forest, he was lost in life. And yet that darkness was the beginning of his journey to paradise, not in spite of suffering, but through it. Let us speak plainly. If you wish to live a meaningful life, you must not flee from suffering. You must face it, embrace it, study it. Let it break you open so something new can be born. The caterpillar does not become a butterfly by stretching in the sun. It enters the chrysalis and dissolves in darkness, in silence. It becomes unrecognizable, and then it transforms. Practical strategy begins with this. Do not deny your pain. Do not cover it with noise, with pleasure, with distraction. Sit with it. Ask what it is trying to reveal. Keep a journal not just of what hurts, but of what the hurt has taught you. Read the Psalms. Read When Bad Things Happen to Good People by Harold Kushner. Read East of Eden by Steinbeck and watch how characters wrestle with the pain of being alive and in the struggle come to deeper truths. Speak with others. Find those who have suffered greatly and listen not just to their wounds but to their wisdom. You will find that those who have found meaning in suffering carry a quiet authority, a depth, a serenity. They have seen the bottom and risen from it. Their strength is not loud, it is unshakable. And you must learn to suffer well, not passively, not with resentment, but with dignity, with attention, with purpose. Let your suffering humble you, soften you, sharpen you. Do not waste it, for the greatest waste is not in pain, it is in pain ignored. Think of Nelson Mandela. 27 years behind bars, and yet he emerged, not bitter, but better, because he gave meaning to his suffering. He used it to prepare, to reflect, to build the inner strength required to lead a nation. And do not forget literature's great witness, Fyodor Dostoevsky. Condemned to death, spared at the last second, imprisoned in Siberia, he wrote from the edge of despair. But through his suffering, he found God, he found truth, and he gave the world The Brothers Karamazov, a novel that wrestles with the deepest questions of justice, redemption, and love. You must understand the very thing you seek, meaning, purpose, depth, often lies on the other side of suffering. That does not mean you should chase pain, but when it comes, as it inevitably does, you must not shrink from it. You must ask it, what are you here to teach me? What is life trying to forge in me through this fire? Meaning is not given, it is made, and suffering is the chisel. So I urge you, when the darkness comes, do not curse it, do not panic. Sit in it, breathe through it, and look for the light within it. There is always a thread. Follow it. You may not emerge the same, but you will emerge more real, more whole, more alive. In the end, suffering does not take meaning away. It reveals it. And once you have found meaning through suffering, no one, not even death, can take it from you. When the sky turns black, when the winds of adversity howl against your soul, when every path you once walked with certainty is washed away by storm and sorrow, how then does a man hold on to hope? How does he lift his head when the weight of the world bears down upon his shoulders? I tell you, it is not a question of mere emotion, nor the whim of circumstance. Hope is not a luxury. Hope is a discipline. It is a spiritual muscle trained in the crucible of trial. In the midst of hardship, hope must become your daily bread, not because the world has promised comfort, but because you have chosen a vision that is larger than the pain. And here lies the paradox. The deeper the pain, the greater the opportunity for hope to rise, not from fantasy, but from fierce resolve. Let us look to the story of Anne Frank. She was a child hiding in a secret annex, hunted not for what she had done, but for who she was. Her world grew smaller and darker by the day, yet she wrote in her diary, I still believe, in spite of everything, that people are truly good at heart. That is not the voice of naivety. That is the voice of heroic hope, the kind that looks evil in the face and says, you may imprison my body, but not my spirit. Hope begins with a vision. A man without vision cannot endure hardship, for he sees no purpose in his pain. But the one who dares to envision a future, a light on the other side of the darkness, can survive any night. The Hebrew prophet Isaiah wrote, they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. But what does wait mean here? It means to hold fast, to expect, to lean forward with anticipation, even when there is no visible reason to do so. Consider Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, much of it in a small cell on Robben Island. Did he lose hope? No, he nurtured it like a seed in dry soil. He visualized freedom. He studied his enemies. He refined his principles. And when the time came, he emerged not as a broken man, but as a visionary leader. Hope had not died in his captivity. It had matured. If you would maintain hope in hardship, you must first master your inner conversation. What you say to yourself in the silence determines whether you rise or fall. Speak not in despair, but in declaration. Say to yourself, this too shall pass. I was not born for defeat. I am being forged, not forgotten. The psalmist said, why are you cast down, O my soul? Hope thou in God. Speak to your soul as a general speaks to his troops. Command it to rise. Practical steps are necessary. Begin with gratitude. In every hardship, find something, however small, to be thankful for. Gratitude is the kindling of hope. Viktor Frankl, surrounded by death in Auschwitz, found joy in a scrap of bread, a shaft of sunlight. He chose to see the beauty that remained. He declared that man could preserve a vestige of spiritual freedom, of independence of mind, even in the most dehumanizing conditions. Next, anchor yourself in the stories of those who have endured before you. Read Man's Search for Meaning. Read the letters of Dietrich Bonhoeffer from prison. Read the book of Job, where even in the face of loss and disease, a man refuses to curse his maker and instead cries out for understanding. These are not mere words. They are lifelines thrown to you across time. Grab hold of them. Hope is not about denying reality. It is about defying it. It is not blind optimism. It is the conviction that tomorrow can be different because you will be different. It is the fire that tells you even if the mountain does not move, you will climb it. You must surround yourself with voices that speak life, not death. In hardship, isolation is deadly. Seek community. Speak with those who have walked through similar fires. You will find that shared suffering creates a bond stronger than steel, and within that bond, hope grows. Do not forget the power of action. Even the smallest forward step renews hope. When the world says you are stuck, act. Read one page, write one sentence, make one call, begin again. Hope thrives on momentum. Despair thrives on stagnation. And remember this, hardship is not the enemy of hope. It is its birthplace. The lotus blooms in the mud. The phoenix rises from ashes. The gold is refined in fire. In literature, this theme repeats like a drumbeat. Odysseus, lost at sea, never gives up hope of home. Jane Eyre, cast out and poor, holds fast to her self-respect and belief in love. Jean Valjean, hunted and hated, becomes a man of mercy and redemption. Hope is not static. It must be fed. Feed it with prayer, with purpose, with the presence of those who believe in you. Feed it with the memory of how far you've already come. You have survived every hardship before this one. Do not forget that. Your scars are proof that the darkness did not win. When hardship comes, and it will, you must become a guardian of your own flame. Do not wait for the world to offer encouragement. Speak it, declare it, write it, live it. Let your very breath be a rebellion against despair. This world has known many who suffered, but those who changed the world were the ones who held on to hope, fiercely, stubbornly, gloriously. They knew what you must learn, that hardship is not the end of the story. It is the chapter in which the hero is tested. And if the hero holds on, if he keeps his eyes fixed on the prize, then the hardship becomes the womb of transformation. You, too, are in such a chapter. And you are not alone. Millions before you have walked this path, and millions after you will. Leave behind not only your survival, but your legacy. Let your endurance be a beacon. Let your hope be the proof that light is stronger than shadow. So I leave you with this. Do not ask whether hardship will come. Ask instead how you will meet it. And let your answer be, with hope unyielding, with eyes set toward the dawn, with a heart that sings even in the storm. Because you were not born to wither, you were born to rise. And hope is your wings. I have stood before many audiences in my lifetime, and if there is one truth that every man and woman must understand before they can climb the mountain of their destiny, it is this. Failure is not the end, it is the entrance. Failure is not your enemy, it is your instructor. And for those who dare to look deeper, failure is the bedrock upon which purpose is revealed, refined, and realized. You must understand that no man ever discovered his calling on the summit. He discovered it in the valley, bloodied, bruised, bewildered by defeat. Failure clears the fog from our illusions. It strips us bare of pride, pretension, and complacency. It forces us to confront who we truly are and what we truly desire. If you will not let it destroy you, failure will deliver you to your destiny. Consider the young man Abraham Lincoln. Before he was a legend, he was a laughingstock. He failed in business. He lost legislative races. He suffered a nervous breakdown. He buried the love of his life. Yet with every failure, his soul was being strengthened. His character was being chiseled. He was being prepared for a greater task than he could yet imagine. When the Union trembled and the nation tore itself apart, who rose to the occasion? A man forged by failure. His defeats had not made him bitter, they had made him deep. Let us also look to Thomas Edison, the wizard of Menlo Park. When asked if he had failed thousands of times before discovering the incandescent light bulb, he replied, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Do you see the genius of this mindset? Every failure was a step closer to success. Every misstep was not wasted, it was wisdom gained. That is the alchemy of failure. It turns defeat into gold if the mind is prepared to mine it. There are those who believe purpose is discovered in a moment of clarity, a lightning strike of inspiration. But this is a myth. Purpose is not found. It is built. It is constructed piece by piece through every false start, every closed door, every heartbreak. It is in the ashes of our shattered plans that we begin to ask the questions that matter. Who am I? What must I become? What is worth rising again for? The Apostle Peter, that fiery fisherman, failed his master in the hour of greatest need. 3 times he denied knowing the one he had sworn to follow to the death. And yet it was that man, broken, repentant, humbled, who would later become the rock upon which a movement was built. His failure did not disqualify him, it prepared him. I urge you to reflect on this truth. Every great man in history has walked the road of failure. Beethoven composed symphonies after going deaf. Walt Disney was fired for lacking imagination. J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter as a single mother on welfare, rejected by publishers again and again. These individuals were not chosen by fate. They were chosen by failure. And because they did not give up, their lives echoed beyond their lives. The deeper lesson is this: failure clarifies. It tells you what you are not meant to do. It exposes false ambitions. It reveals your real hunger. In the darkness of disappointment, your authentic desire begins to speak. The noise is gone. The applause has faded. Now, what remains? That is your purpose. If you would use failure as your foundation, you must first shift your mindset. Stop seeing it as a verdict. See it as a signal. It is not telling you to quit. It is telling you to evolve. Study your failure. Journal it. Dissect it. Where did you stray from your principles? Where did you act out of fear instead of faith? Where did you chase the approval of others rather than the truth of your own heart? Then you must speak truth to yourself. Do not say, "I am a failure." Say, "I have failed and I am learning." The moment you claim your failure, it loses its power to define you. It becomes fuel. As the poet Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Literature is rich with this wisdom. In Moby Dick, Ahab fails to conquer the whale, but in his ruin, the reader discovers the dangers of obsession. In Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov fails morally and spiritually, and yet through suffering, he discovers repentance and redemption. The story of failure is the story of humanity. It is universal, and therefore it is sacred. Let me offer you a practical path. When you fail, resist the temptation to retreat into shame. Shame is a thief. It tells you that you are unworthy. But failure is not shame. It is evidence that you dared. Take stock of what you've learned. Write down the insights that pain has given you. Revisit your goals. Are they aligned with your deepest values? Or were they illusions dressed in ambition? Then act, not grandly, but faithfully. One step, one call, one new plan. Use what you've learned, apply it. Let the scar remind you not of weakness, but of your strength to rise again. And if you are still in the valley, still licking the wounds of a recent fall, Hold on. The climb begins with a single choice: to stand. Purpose is not always clear in the moment, but it will be made clear in hindsight. Your story is not over. In fact, this chapter may be the most important of all. So I say to you, bless your failures, embrace them, honor them, for they are the proving ground of your purpose. And when you rise, and you will rise, you will carry with you the unshakable knowledge that nothing was wasted. Every fall shaped you, every defeat strengthened you, every closed door redirected you. The foundation of purpose is not perfection, it is perseverance, it is grit, it is the courage to try again, wiser, stronger, clearer than before. Let history remember you not as the one who never fell, but as the one who never stayed down. Failure is not your tomb, it is your training ground. And through it, your purpose shall be revealed. There are moments in a man's life when the walls begin to close in, when the path ahead is shrouded in darkness and the winds of misfortune tear through everything he once held secure. And it is in such moments, precisely such moments, that his soul is summoned to rise, not in comfort, not in certainty, but in adversity. For it is only in the fiery furnace of hardship that the iron of potential is transformed into the steel of purpose. Let the truth be spoken plainly. Adversity is the midwife of greatness. It rouses what lies dormant. It digs deep into the soil of your being and unearths qualities you never knew you possessed. Man does not discover his strength sitting by the fire. He finds it on the battlefield of despair. He does not discover his voice in the echo chamber of praise. He finds it in the silence of rejection. And he does not discover his courage in times of ease. He finds it staring into the abyss and choosing still to move forward. The Roman general and philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is no abstract thought. It is the very law of transformation. The obstacle is not there to stop you. It is there to summon your hidden greatness. Adversity is not your enemy, it is your catalyst. Let us consider Helen Keller, blind and deaf from infancy. What chance did she have in a world that equated intelligence with speech? What voice could she offer a society that would not hear her? Yet through persistence and the unrelenting guidance of her teacher, Anne Sullivan, she broke through the silence, and not only did she find her voice, she became a voice for millions. Her adversity was not her limitation, it was her liberation. It forged in her a soul so attuned to purpose that it could not be silenced. This awakening of potential in adversity is not limited to the exceptional. It is available to every man and woman who refuses to shrink from their trials. In the African plains, the acacia tree grows thorns not in fertile soil, but in drought. It develops deeper roots when rain is withheld. You too must develop deeper roots when life withdraws its favors. To awaken your potential through adversity, you must first change your lens. See not the pain, see the preparation. Ask not, why is this happening to me, but rather, what is this calling out of me? When hardship knocks, know that life is not punishing you, it is pressing you to become. The most inspiring figures in history were not born on thrones. They were born in hardship. Harriet Tubman, born into slavery, never accepted the chains placed upon her. Each escape, each journey back to free others, revealed her potential not just as a survivor, but as a leader. Her adversity did not shrink her, it expanded her. She became larger than her suffering. So must you. The key is not to avoid adversity, but to confront it with intention. Use it. Let it reveal the limits you once believed in and then shatter them. Let it test your resolve and then strengthen it. Let it expose your weakness so that you may build true strength. Begin by examining the nature of your discomfort. What does it reveal? If you feel trapped in your career, perhaps your potential lies in a different calling. If you feel betrayed in your relationships, perhaps your potential lies in self-respect and boundary. If you feel lost in your identity, perhaps your potential lies in reinvention. The adversity is the signal. Listen to it. Do not forget the power of reflection. In the heat of suffering, the instinct is to act, to escape, to distract. But to awaken your potential, you must first feel the adversity. Let it speak. Journal your thoughts. Wrestle with your fears. Let the inner voice that's been buried under layers of habit and noise come alive again. That voice is your potential trying to breathe. From literature, we find countless reflections of this truth. Consider Elizabeth Bennet in Pride and Prejudice. It was not through admiration that she grew, but through conflict, through misjudgment, pride, and the painful recognition of her own faults. That recognition awakened in her a new depth of character. Or Jean Valjean in Les Miserables, whose transformation from convict to savior began not in triumph, but in rejection and solitude. The soul becomes visible only after it has walked through fire. You must also learn to endure, for potential is not awakened in a moment. It is revealed through persistence. The mountaineer does not become strong at the base of the mountain. His legs become iron as he climbs. The runner's lungs expand only through resistance. So too your potential will unfold, not by avoiding hardship, but by engaging it with faith, resilience, and discipline. Find your mentors, living or dead. Read the biographies of those who endured. Find in their lives the evidence that you too can rise. Learn from Frederick Douglass, who taught himself to read in secret while enslaved. Learn from Malala Yousafzai, who was shot for seeking education and then became a global voice for girls' rights. Their adversity did not crush them. It clarified them. Practical action is essential. Do not wait to feel ready. Begin now. Start small. Challenge yourself daily to confront fear, to speak truth, to choose growth over comfort. Adversity will not wait for your convenience. It will arrive uninvited, but you can meet it prepared if you make adversity your teacher. And above all, hold to this eternal truth. The seed of your greatest potential lies buried in the soil of your deepest struggle. Do not curse the soil. Tend it, dig into it, and know that in time something extraordinary will rise. You were not born for mediocrity. You were not created for ease. The greatness within you sleeps until adversity knocks, and then, if you are willing, it awakens. So I say, let it awaken. Let hardship forge you. Let pain shape you. Let adversity become the sacred fire in which your true self is revealed. And let the world bear witness not to the one who was broken by suffering, but to the one who was born by it. There are forces in this world that reason cannot explain. There are trials too heavy for the intellect alone to bear. And there are moments, soul-wrenching moments, when a man is brought so low that no earthly philosophy can lift him. It is in such hours, when life has been stripped of its comforts, when every strategy has failed, that spiritual belief becomes not only a refuge, but a reservoir of strength deeper than any other source. To endure adversity is not merely to grit one's teeth and press on. It is to transcend suffering. And this transcendence cannot be forged in logic alone. It is born of faith, of trust in something greater than oneself. Call it God, the universe, the divine order, the infinite intelligence. The name is of no consequence. What matters is the presence of belief, the unwavering conviction that there is meaning behind the madness, purpose in the pain, and guidance even in the storm. History bears this truth in the lives of men and women who endured unimaginable hardship and emerged not only unbroken, but uplifted. Take Viktor Frankl, the Jewish psychiatrist imprisoned in Auschwitz. He saw men starved, beaten, murdered, yet he wrote that even in the face of such horror, those who could hold on to a deeper meaning, often rooted in faith, were the ones who survived with their humanity intact. Frankel's spiritual belief did not save him from suffering, but it gave his suffering dignity. Through it, he discovered his purpose to teach that man's last freedom is the ability to choose his attitude in any circumstance. Let us turn to Job, the ancient figure of Scripture, who lost his family, his wealth, his health, and when all was gone, he cried not for possessions, but for understanding. His suffering brought him to his knees, but it also opened the door to divine wisdom. In the end, he was restored not because he cursed his fate, but because he remained in communion with the unseen hand that governed his life. Job teaches us that spiritual endurance is not the absence of doubt, but the perseverance of faith through the doubt. Spiritual belief grants man three priceless gifts in adversity. First, it offers perspective. The man who believes he is part of a greater story can endure a bitter chapter. He does not crumble under the weight of temporary defeat. He says, "This is not the end of my book." The Apostle Paul, beaten, imprisoned, shipwrecked, yet still proclaiming joy, wrote, "Our light affliction, which is but for a moment, works for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." Faith lifted his eyes from chains to crown. Second, spiritual belief brings peace that defies circumstance. It quiets the storm within, even if the storm without rages on. Consider Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, yet emerged not with bitterness, but forgiveness. Why? Because he believed in justice, in reconciliation, in the possibility of redemption. That belief sustained him when all evidence contradicted it. His soul was anchored in something eternal. Third, spiritual belief ignites transformation. It takes suffering and converts it into service. Look at Florence Nightingale, who heard the call of God in her spirit and endured exhaustion, disease, and societal opposition to nurse the wounded and reform medicine. Her hardship became a mission because her belief turned pain into purpose. But let us speak plainly. Spiritual belief is not an escape from suffering. It is not a magic wand. It does not promise immunity. It promises insight. It does not remove hardship. It redeems it. True faith does not deny pain. It declares that pain can be holy, that struggle can be sacred, that your trial may be the very crucible through which your soul is refined. Do you wish to endure your adversity? Then build your spiritual life as you would a fortress. Pray not only in crisis, but in quiet. Meditate not only for calm, but for clarity. Read sacred texts not as dogma, but as dialogue between you and the divine. In The Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky writes that suffering is a part of God's plan for human growth. He does not romanticize it, but he does show that through it, man becomes capable of compassion, humility, and love. Make space in your daily practice for stillness, not to escape the world, but to re-enter it with power. Find a community of faith, whatever tradition calls to you, not to be preached to, but to walk with those who also seek meaning in the midst of trial. There is strength in the collective spirit. And remember this, spiritual belief does not always speak in thunder. Often it is a whisper in the dark. It says, keep going. You are not alone. It was that whisper that guided Harriet Beecher Stowe to write Uncle Tom's Cabin, lighting a fire in the conscience of a nation. It was that whisper that held Anne Frank through the long nights in hiding. It was that whisper that lifted Martin Luther King Jr. as he faced hatred, jail, and assassination threats, yet still preached love. Do not wait for catastrophe to cultivate your spirit. Begin now. For when adversity comes, and it will, it is your spiritual foundation that will determine whether you crumble or climb. Believe in the unseen. Trust in the timing of life. Know that within you is a divine spark that no amount of suffering can extinguish. The flame may flicker, but if you guard it, feed it, and honor it, it will grow into a fire that warms others, lights paths, and changes destinies. Spiritual belief is the lighthouse in the storm. It does not calm the sea, but it shows you the way home. And that home, dear listener, is your purpose, refined by adversity, revealed by faith, and fulfilled in service to something higher than yourself. Hold fast to it, for in the darkest night it will shine, and in your endurance, through belief, you will become the very miracle you once prayed for.